You think you know how to bake? Baby, sit down. Because I promise you, after watching this video, you are going to look at your kitchen in a completely different way. We are talking about 31 baking tricks passed down through generations in black households across America, the kind of knowledge that never made it into any cookbook, never got posted on any fancy food blog, and sure never showed up in a cooking class. These are the secrets your big mama kept in her head, the things your grandma B would whisper while you stood beside her at that oven. The wisdom that made church folks go absolutely crazy over the sweet potato pie at every single family reunion. This is ancestral knowledge, and today we are bringing it all the way out into the open. From number 31 all the way down to the most mind-blowing trick you have ever heard, buckle up because this is going to change everything you thought you knew about baking. Number 31. Use evaporated milk instead of regular milk in almost everything. Walk into any black grandmother's pantry and you will find at least 3 cans of evaporated milk sitting on that shelf. This is not an accident. Grandma Hattie knew something the rest of the world is just now figuring out. Evaporated milk has had about 60% of its water removed through a slow heating process, which means when you bake with it, you are adding far more richness and creaminess than regular milk could ever give you. Use it in your cornbread batter, your pound cake, your banana pudding layers, your sweet potato filling. The result is a denser, more luxurious texture and a depth of flavor that regular milk simply cannot produce. Swap it in a 1-to-1 ratio and watch people ask you what your secret is. Number 30. Grease your pans with Crisco and flour together. Do not even think about just spraying that pan with cooking spray and walking away. Grandma never did that, and her cakes never stuck either. The trick is to use solid Crisco shortening. Take a paper towel or just use your clean hand and coat every single inch of that pan, including the sides and corners. Then throw in about a tablespoon of flour, tilt and tap that pan until every grease surface is covered in a thin white coat and knock out the excess. What you have done is created a physical barrier between your batter and the metal. Crisco has a higher melting point than butter, so it stays in place even as the oven heats up and the flour forms a dry layer that releases cleanly when the cake is done. No tearing, no sticking, no disaster. Number 29. Add a box of pudding mix to your cake batter. This is one of those tricks that sounds too simple to be real, but it is absolutely real and it works every single time. Stir a small box of instant pudding mix, flavor matching your cake into your dry ingredients before adding anything wet. Vanilla pudding in a yellow cake, chocolate pudding in a chocolate cake, lemon pudding in a lemon cake. The pudding mix contains modified food starch and extra sugar, which locks moisture into every single crumb of that cake. The result is a cake that stays soft for days instead of drying out overnight. This is exactly why Big Mama's cake at the repast was still moist on the second day when everyone came back for more. Number 28. Soak raisins before adding them to baked goods. Dry raisins in a cake or bread are sad little pebbles. Every black grandma who ever put raisins in her sweetbread knew to soak them first. Take your raisins, put them in a bowl, cover them with warm water, a little rum extract, or even some orange juice, and let them sit for at least 20 minutes. What happens is those raisins absorb that liquid and plump back up to a soft, juicy, flavorful state. When they bake inside your bread or cake, they release that moisture slowly into the surrounding dough, giving you little pockets of sweet, tender goodness instead of chewy, hard bits that ruin the texture. Number 27. Use Duke's or Blue Plate mayonnaise in your cake batter. Yes, mayonnaise, in cake. Stop looking at the screen like that and listen. Southern black grandmothers have been doing this for decades and nobody in their family ever complained. Mayonnaise is made of oil and eggs, which are both things you already put in cake batter. Adding 2 or 3 tablespoons of full-fat mayo to your mix adds an extra layer of moisture and helps the cake rise with a finer crumb. The oil in the mayo coats flour proteins more gently than liquid oil does, and the emulsified eggs bind everything together more uniformly. The result is a cake that is unbelievably tender and moist, and no, it does not taste like a sandwich. Number 26. Let your cold ingredients come to room temperature. Grandma always took her eggs and butter out of the refrigerator before she even started measuring anything else. And now you are going to understand exactly why. When you cream cold butter with sugar, the butter does not break down properly and you end up with a grainy, dense mixture. Cold eggs added to warm batter can cause it to curdle. But when everything is at room temperature, your butter creams up light and fluffy. Your eggs incorporate smoothly and your batter emulsifies correctly. This creates a uniform structure in your cake that bakes evenly from edge to center. Pull your ingredients out about an hour before you start baking and you will notice the difference immediately. Number 25. Add a teaspoon of vinegar to brighten red velvet. Red velvet cake has deep roots in black baking culture, and the real old school recipe is not just about red food coloring. Grandma May always added a splash of apple cider vinegar to her red velvet batter, and here is the science behind why that works so well. Vinegar reacts with the baking soda in the batter to create carbon dioxide bubbles, which makes the cake lighter and more tender. But beyond that, the acid in the vinegar reacts with natural cocoa powder to bring out reddish pigments in the chocolate, giving you a deeper, more authentic color. The vinegar also balances the sweetness so the cake is not cloying. A teaspoon is all you need. Number 24. Toast your nuts and coconut before folding them in. If you are throwing raw pecans or raw coconut flakes directly into your cake batter or your frosting, you are leaving so much flavor on the table. Spread your pecans, walnuts, or coconut onto a dry sheet pan and put them in a 350-degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, stirring once halfway through. Toasting activates the natural oils inside nuts and coconut, deepening their flavor dramatically and giving them a crunch that holds up even after baking. Your German chocolate cake topping, your butter pecan cake, your coconut layer cake, all of it becomes richer and more complex with this one extra step. Grandma Odessa did not skip this step, and neither should you. Number 23. Use self-rising flour for lighter biscuits and quick breads. Black grandmothers in the South did not overthink their biscuits, and that is precisely why their biscuits were perfect. Self-rising flour already contains a specific ratio of baking powder and salt that has been calibrated during the milling process. When you add your own leavening agents on top of regular all-purpose flour, you risk getting that ratio wrong. Self-rising flour takes the guesswork out completely. Combined with cold buttermilk and cold grated butter or Crisco, you get a biscuit that rises tall and pulls apart in layers. The key is to not overwork the dough. Mix only until the ingredients just come together, then stop. Number 22. Put a pan of water in the oven when baking pound cake. This trick is pure genius, and it comes straight from the old-school church kitchen. Place an oven-safe pan filled with about 2 cups of hot water on the bottom rack of your oven before you put your pound cake in on the middle rack. As that water heats up, it creates steam inside your oven. That steam keeps the outer surface of your pound cake from setting too quickly, which allows the center to rise fully before a crust forms. The result is a pound cake with a beautiful dome and a crack down the top center, which is actually the sign of a well-made pound cake. The interior stays moist and dense the way it is supposed to be. Number 21. Use brown butter instead of regular melted butter. This is a trick that every black grandmother who made serious scratch cookies and bars knew without ever reading a recipe for it. Instead of just melting your butter and adding it to your batter, take it a step further. Melt the butter in a light-colored pan over medium heat and keep cooking it, swirling occasionally until the milk solids at the bottom of the pan turn a golden brown and it smells nutty like caramel or toffee. Take it off the heat immediately and let it cool slightly. That browning process, called the Maillard reaction, creates hundreds of new flavor compounds in the butter that add incredible depth to cookies, brownies, and quick breads. Your chocolate chip cookies will never be the same. Number 20. Chill your cookie dough overnight. Mom and Em always said good things take time, and cookie dough is no exception. After mixing your cookie dough, cover it tight and put it in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours, ideally 24. During that resting time, 2 things happen. The flour fully hydrates, meaning it absorbs all the moisture in the dough, which gives you a chewier, more uniform texture. And the sugars start to break down slightly, which deepens the flavor and helps your cookies brown more evenly and beautifully in the oven. The cookies will be thicker, chewier, and more flavorful than anything you get from dough baked right away. This is why Grandma's Christmas cookies were always better than everyone else's. Number 19. Use cake flour for your most important cakes. When Grandma was making a special occasion cake, a birthday cake, an anniversary cake, or the cake she brought to Women's Day at church, she used cake flour, not all-purpose. Cake flour has a significantly lower protein content, around 7 to 9% compared to 11 or 12% in all-purpose flour. Lower protein means less gluten formation, which means a more tender, delicate crumb structure. Your layers will be softer, finer, and lighter. For every cup of cake flour a recipe calls for, you can make your own by taking 1 cup of all-purpose flour, removing 2 tablespoons of it, and replacing those 2 tablespoons with cornstarch. That is the old-school DIY substitute Grandma used when she ran out. Number 18. Add cream cheese to your sweet potato pie filling. Sweet potato pie is sacred in Black households. You do not play with sweet potato pie. But the grandmothers who made the absolute best sweet potato pie, the ones people talked about at every family gathering, they had a secret, and that secret was a small block of softened cream cheese blended into the filling. Cream cheese adds a subtle tang that balances the sweetness of the potatoes and the sugar. It also adds fat and structure so the pie slices cleanly and holds its shape on the plate instead of sliding apart. Beat it in fully before adding your other ingredients and it will disappear completely into the filling, leaving only a richer, creamier result. Number 17. Blind bake your pie crust before adding wet fillings. Nobody wanted a soggy bottom on their pie at Grandma Ruby's table, and that is because Grandma Ruby always blind baked her crust first. After pressing or rolling your pie dough into the dish, line it with parchment paper or foil, fill it with dried beans or pie weights, and bake it at 375 degrees for about 15 minutes. Then remove the weights and bake it bare for another 5 to 7 minutes until the bottom looks dry and just starting to turn golden. When you add your filling and finish baking, the crust underneath stays crisp instead of becoming a wet, undercooked mess. This step matters most for custard pies, sweet potato pies, and peach cobblers made in a crust. Number 16. Brush your pie crust with egg wash and a pinch of sugar. Before that pie goes in the oven, beat 1 egg with a teaspoon of water and brush it across the top crust or the edges of your crust. Then sprinkle on a small amount of coarse sugar or even regular granulated sugar. The egg wash does 2 things. The protein in the egg browns beautifully in the heat, giving your crust that deep golden color you see on a perfect pie. The fat in the yolk adds shine. The sugar on top caramelizes slightly and gives you a delicate crunch on the surface that looks bakery quality. Grandma did not let a pie leave her kitchen without this step because presentation mattered just as much as taste. Number 15. Substitute sour cream for oil in boxed cake mixes. When you are using a boxed mix but want it to taste like you made it completely from scratch, swap out the vegetable oil the box calls for with an equal amount of full-fat sour cream. Oil adds moisture but adds nothing in the way of flavor. Sour cream adds moisture and also adds a slight tanginess, fat from the dairy, and a richness that makes the cake taste genuinely homemade. The acidity in the sour cream also reacts with the leavening in the mix to give you a slightly lighter, more tender crumb. This was the secret of many a church bake sale winner who never told a soul what she actually did to that box mix. Number 14. Always sift your dry ingredients together. Grandma took her time in the kitchen, and one thing she never skipped was sifting. Even if your flour looks fine in the bag, it compacts during storage, which means a cup of unsifted flour has more flour in it than a cup of sifted flour. This difference leads to dense, heavy baked goods. Sifting also mixes your dry ingredients more thoroughly than stirring can, so your baking powder, baking soda, salt, and spices are evenly distributed throughout the flour before you add anything wet. Even distribution means your cake rises evenly and tastes the same in every single bite. Use a mesh strainer if you do not have a sifter and get the same result. Number 13. Add lemon zest to your pound cake batter. The best pound cake in the neighborhood always had something that made it taste alive and bright, and that thing was usually fresh lemon zest. The zest from one or two lemons, grated finely and added to your batter along with a splash of lemon extract, releases citrus oils into the batter that baking cannot destroy. Those oils lift the heavy butter and egg flavor of a classic pound cake and give it a fresh, vibrant note. This is why Grandma Celestine's pound cake was different from everybody else's, even though she used the same basic recipe. Zest from the whole fruit, not just juice, is where the flavor lives. Number 12. Use buttermilk in place of regular milk in nearly everything. If regular milk is a suggestion in a recipe, buttermilk is the upgrade. Real Southern black baking culture runs on buttermilk. The lactic acid in buttermilk tenderizes gluten strands in your batter, giving you a more tender result. It reacts with baking soda to provide extra leavening. It adds a subtle tang that balances sweetness without being noticeable as sour. Pancakes become fluffier, cornbread becomes more tender, cakes become softer and more moist. If you do not have buttermilk, add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar or lemon juice to 1 cup of regular milk, stir it, and let it sit for 5 minutes to curdle. That is your quick buttermilk substitute. Number 11. Keep a bowl of ice water ready when making pie dough. Perfect pie crust is cold fat and water, and that is it. The problem most people have is that their hands warm up the butter or Crisco as they work the dough, and warm fat means tough crust instead of flaky crust. Grandma always had a bowl of ice water sitting right beside her as she made her crust. She would dip her hands in that water periodically to keep them cold, and she used the ice water, added by the tablespoon, to bring the dough together. Cold water keeps the fat pieces intact within the flour, and those fat pieces create steam pockets in the oven that produce distinct, beautiful layers. Warm water melts the fat and gives you shoe leather instead of a crust. Number 10. Test cake doneness with a broom straw, not a toothpick. In many old black households, especially in the Deep South, the kitchen was so full of life and tradition that even the tools were specific. Grandma did not always use a fancy toothpick to test her cake. She used a clean broom straw pulled from a real straw broom. The broom straw is longer than a toothpick, so it can reach all the way to the center of a deep pound cake or a bundt. Insert it into the thickest part of the cake and pull it out. If it comes out clean or with just a few moist crumbs, the cake is done. If it has wet batter on it, give it 5 more minutes. This trick works exactly the same as a toothpick but connects to a real tradition. Number 9. Frost your cake layers when they are completely cool. This sounds obvious, but it is violated constantly, which is why so many homemade cakes look a melted mess. Hot or even warm cake layers will melt your buttercream or cream cheese frosting on contact, causing it to slide off, become greasy, and look completely undone. Grandma always made her cake layers the day before, let them cool completely at room temperature, then wrapped them in plastic wrap and either refrigerated or left them at room temperature overnight. The next day she stacked and frosted with perfect results. Cool layers are also firmer and easier to handle, which means they do not crumble or break when you are spreading frosting across them. Number 8. Use vanilla extract generously and never measure it. Black grandmothers who baked by feel rather than by recipe always tip that bottle of vanilla extract and let it pour freely. Vanilla is the backbone of most sweet-baked goods. It enhances every other flavor in the recipe, making chocolate taste more chocolatey, caramel taste richer, and butter taste more buttery. The recipes that call for 1 teaspoon of vanilla are just giving you the minimum. Grandma knew that 2 teaspoons, or even a tablespoon, in a large cake batter makes a difference you can actually taste. Use pure vanilla extract, not imitation, whenever you can. The flavor compounds in real vanilla are more complex, and they do not bake out the way imitation vanilla does at high heat. Number 7. Add coffee to chocolate cake batter. Here is one that might surprise you. The best chocolate cake Grandma ever made did not just taste like chocolate, it tasted like the most intense, deep, complex chocolate you could imagine. And the reason was that she added a half cup of strong hot coffee to her chocolate batter in place of that same amount of liquid. Coffee does not make your cake taste like coffee. What it does is amplify the existing cocoa flavor by enhancing the bitter compounds in chocolate and adding roasted depth. The result is a chocolate cake that tastes richer without being sweeter. Even instant coffee dissolved in hot water works perfectly for this, and it is the kind of move that separates a great chocolate cake from a good one. Number 6. Use sweetened condensed milk in your frosting. Forget the standard powdered sugar and butter recipe for a moment. Some of the creamiest, most indulgent frostings from Black Grandmother's kitchens came from sweetened condensed milk. Combine softened butter with sweetened condensed milk and beat it until it is fluffy, adding your flavoring and a small amount of powdered sugar to achieve the right consistency. The condensed milk adds incredible sweetness and a slightly caramelized richness that you cannot get from plain sugar. It also makes the frosting creamier and gives it a better mouthfeel. This works beautifully on coconut cake, caramel cake, or banana cake, and it is the kind of frosting people will request by name. Number 5. Put your bundt pan in a warm oven before greasing it. Before greasing your bundt pan, place it in the oven while the oven preheats just for about 3 or 4 minutes. Pull it out carefully with oven mitts. Now grease it while it is warm using the Crisco and flour method. The warmth opens up the metal slightly and allows the Crisco to bond more thoroughly to the surface, creating a more effective nonstick barrier. The cake will release cleanly when turned over after cooling without sticking to those detailed curves and ridges that make bundt pans so difficult. Grandma's bundt cake always came out perfect, and this was the reason why. A warm pan greased with Crisco is essentially nonstick cookware you made yourself. Number 4. Add a grated apple to your banana bread batter. This one is incredibly clever, and it is the kind of trick that gets passed down quietly. When you make banana bread, grate 1 medium apple, skin removed, and fold it into your batter just before baking. The apple adds moisture, natural sugar, and a very subtle flavor that you cannot quite identify, but that makes the bread taste better and more complex. Apples also contain pectin, a natural fiber that helps hold moisture in the loaf as it bakes and as it sits. Your banana bread will stay moist for several more days than usual, and nobody at the breakfast table will be able to figure out why it tastes so exceptional. This is the kind of quiet genius that defined Black Grandma baking. Number 3. Score your cornbread before it goes in the oven. Cast iron skillet. Cornbread is a foundation of Black Southern cooking, and Grandma Erlene had a trick for getting that perfectly crispy top with a moist interior every single time. After pouring your batter into your preheated, greased cast iron skillet, take a knife and score the top of the batter lightly in whatever pattern you like, squares, diamonds, or lines. These shallow cuts allow heat to penetrate the top of the cornbread more evenly and create more surface area for browning. The result is a cornbread with a crunchier, more caramelized top and edges while the inside stays soft and tender. The cast iron itself should be hot before the batter goes in, which immediately starts crisping the bottom and sides. Number 2. Brush your finished cake with simple syrup before frosting. Right before you frost your completely cooled cake layers, brush each layer generously with simple syrup. Simple syrup is just equal parts sugar and water, heated together until the sugar dissolves completely. Let it cool, then use a pastry brush or even just a spoon to apply it across the top of each layer. This syrup soaks into the surface of the cake and adds moisture that will stay there even after the cake has been sitting out for hours or sitting in the refrigerator for days. It also adds a translucent shine to the cake surface before frosting goes on. Every professional bakery does this, but it was Black grandmothers who taught their daughters and granddaughters to do it at home long before it became an industry standard. And finally, number 1, the greatest trick of all. Never skip the love. I know that sounds soft, but stay with me because this one is real. Every single Black grandmother who baked knew that her presence, her intention, and her attention shaped everything she made. She was not distracted when she was baking. She was not rushed. She moved through her kitchen with purpose, tasting as she went, adjusting by feel, putting her full self into every recipe. Modern food science actually supports the idea that stress and negative emotions during food preparation can cause subtle errors in measurement, timing, and ingredient handling that negatively affect results. When Grandma May or Big Mama or Mama Dot baked with love and focus, she caught the small things: the batter that needed one more tablespoon of buttermilk, the cake that needed 3 more minutes, the frosting that needed just a pinch more salt. That attentiveness is the ingredient no recipe can list, and it is the reason her food always tasted like home. If you learned something today, share this video with someone who needs to level up their baking game. Drop in the comments which trick you are trying first. And if your grandma had a secret trick of her own that I did not mention, put it down below because this community deserves to know. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video because we are just getting started. Now go get in that kitchen and make your ancestors proud.